Hi, my name is Linda Sullivan. I'm a parent of an autistic child, and April is a month that a lot of people celebrate or try to bring attention to the fact that autism is one of the fastest growing conditions in children and young adults in this country. 1 in 35 kids this year will be diagnosed, and the number keeps going down. In other words, next year it might be 1 in 30. The year after that, 1 in 25. Before you know it, we might have 1 in 5. Autism spectrum disorder is just that, a spectrum. You see one child on the autism spectrum and you assume that all children are like that, or all adults, because there are adults now that are also on the autism spectrum, but you may not even know it. There are a lot of therapies for younger people on the autism spectrum, and that is awesome, but there's not a lot in the way for children on the autism spectrum unless they live in big cities. We just happen to live in rural Wisconsin. There isn't a lot outside of the public schools. There's a few therapists in Madison or Milwaukee, but we live right in the middle. There's not a whole lot of therapy available for us, even with insurance. And if you don't have insurance, that's even worse. But I'm not here to just raise awareness about therapy. I'm here to talk about the fact that children on the autism spectrum are mostly ignored. And parents who have children on the autism spectrum, we go through a lot trying to bring these children up. I'm a Christian. My family is a Christian. We follow the Lord. And not everybody who's got children on the autism spectrum is a Christian, and that's fine. But we try to bring our kids to church. We try to teach them about the Lord. And there are times, many times, that churches do not accept children on the autism spectrum. Be it because they don't understand, they don't have enough workers, they don't have enough space. Now, I have to say, thankfully, our church, the church that we're in currently, has a big heart. There are people, most of the people, who accept kids on the spectrum, but not every church does this. I was in churches previously that when children came, they didn't know how to handle them. I was one of the people that they often spoke to about dealing with these other children on the spectrum. They aren't trained as teachers in Sunday school classes or youth groups to handle these sort of situations. And that's really sad, because I think our churches are doing a big misservice to many of these people. Because a lot of them now are not just children, they're young people, they're teenagers like my son. As a parent of a child on the autism spectrum, or now a teenager on the autism spectrum, I'd like to say that there are a lot of things that we heard as our son was growing up. One of the big ones was, he doesn't look autistic. You don't know what you see on the outside is not what they are like at home. Often parents deal with meltdowns, which, by the way, are not temper tantrums, but they are usually sensory overload from what people see in public. You know, all those kids in the stores that have temper tantrums, and people always say, oh, not my child. Well, unfortunately, that happens to a lot of autistic parents, and people assume the worst. They think, oh, they're having a temper tantrum. Their parents should parent them better. You have no idea. No idea. Do not judge a parent even ones that you know passerby in the store and you think, oh, they don't look autistic, so it's probably just a regular temper tantrum. You honestly don't know, so don't judge. Another thing I've heard many times is they'll outgrow their autism. Many people do. No, that is not the case, believe me. The child may learn to adapt or to mask, to pass as a person who does not look autistic, but that drains them constantly. There are more girls now that are being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, thankfully, because for a long time, girls on the autism spectrum were just labeled lazy or selective hearing. We suspect that my other daughter might be on the spectrum as well, but she hasn't got a diagnosis because now that she's older, it's harder to get her a diagnosis. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is girls can be on the autism spectrum too. So don't just assume that your child is lazy. Don't just assume that they are trying to ignore you, or it could just be ADHD, or it could just be this, because many girls are misdiagnosed multiple times by doctors. So don't assume that your daughter is just lazy, because she could have autism. Another thing that I hear all the time is your child on a casein-free, gluten-free diet? That might work for some people, but that doesn't work for everybody. And autism is not, it's a medical condition, but it's not a disease, so it can't necessarily be treated with diet. Another thing that I often hear is that all things work together for good to them that love God. Now, believe me, as a Christian, I believe God's word in the Bible. I totally believe that verse is true, but you're taking it out of context. Yes, all things work together for good. Work together for good. They aren't good in themselves. Now, again, I'm not saying God makes a mistake there. And God uses the autism in our family to draw us closer to Him. But at the same time, throwing verses at a parent who's going through issues with their autistic child is not helpful. I cannot say that enough. I've had so many verses thrown at me in my life. With God, all things are possible. All things work together for good. These verses, again, I believe to be true, but you're taking them out of context and you're trying to use them helpfully, but they're coming across as arrows instead of being a loving, helpful person. Another thing I would say too is don't tell autistic parents that because you know someone who's on the autistic spectrum, you know what they're going through. You don't. You don't. You think you might know, but you honestly don't. If you want to help an autistic parent, this is what you can do. You can befriend them, especially a new parent who's just got the recent diagnosis that their child is on the spectrum. Come alongside them, pray with them, listen to them, encourage them, but not throw verses at them. Maybe buy their groceries for a month. Maybe offer to babysit for free. Do something like that. That is a big, big help. Pastors, listen to your church members who have kids on the spectrum. Again, Our current church is a great church. They aren't perfect, but they accept us. They accept our kids as they are, and they love them. I cannot tell you how many times I've had kids from our current church come up and talk to my kids, play with my kids, include my kids. I am so thankful for that from the bottom of my heart. But not every church does that. And even here, there are people that just don't accept kids on the spectrum. And that's just going to be the way it is. I've accepted that now. But that is something that you can do to help an autistic person or a parent with a child on the spectrum. Autism is not contagious, okay? Please talk to your kids, learn about autism, learn about ways that you can try to include those kids with your kids. Maybe get your kids to go out of their way to include the other child on the spectrum. Maybe bring them to your house if the parents are okay with that, and do play dates with them. Get to know the families. They really do need your love and support. There are ways to support autism. Light 'em up blue is not the way to go about it. But please, honestly, just love on the families that have autistic young people. Thank you so much.